You are listening to the Disney Dream Girls, an unofficial Disney Theme Parks podcast, and this is show number 521 for Sunday, the 6th of October, 2024.
Where dreams begin.
Hello and welcome to this week's Disney Dream Girls. My name is Michelle Young, and together with my jolly good chum Jane Phipps, we are your guides to the place where dreams begin. Hello there, Jane.
Hello there, Michelle. This feels very weird. It feels like this has been an awfully long time since you and I have chit-chatted.
It's beyond a very long time because it is a long time. I think I looked on the old Skype link and it was the end of July since we did one.
I know, I did the same. As well, Michelle. I thought, oh my goodness. I knew it had been a while, but I hadn't realised it had been quite that long. Apologies, everybody. My life has been chaotic, to say the least, of late.
Yeah, we did manage to get a Patreon recorded face-to-face before I jetted off. So we did that, and then we got a additional Patreon last week from the lovely Seth Kabursky, as on the show he talked a lot about his trip to Tokyo. And for the Patreons, they got some additional content where he was talking about going to Universal in Tokyo and some other bits and pieces. So if you want to hear more from Seth, patreon.com/Disney Dream Girls, and you can not only get that, but every single past podcast gem that we've done as an exclusive for all of our Patreons. And we have some amazing shows with, you know, the now sadly departed wonderful Jim Corcus. We've got shows with Len Tester, we've got shows with Seth Kabursky, but all sorts of other guests, and also Jane and I waffling about Disney.
I was just going to say, there's probably an awful lot of waffle going on between you and I as well.
And I think that is going to fit in perfectly with what we are going to discuss this week. Slight tenuous link to the churro Disney Mickey waffle available on the Disney Cruise Line, because Jane is going to be posed some questions from my good self about her travels on the Disney Dream. So I suggest, lovelies, you get yourself all comfortable and ready to hear some top content about what was great, what was not so great, and what will be probably repeated in the future on a Disney cruise by the lovely Phipps family. So Janie.
Yes, Michelle.
Why did you choose this itinerary amongst all of the other Disney cruise activities that you could have chosen?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, I was trying to avoid school holidays because obviously lots of kiddie winks. Not that I've got anything against children. I worked with children for an awful lot of years, but, you know, it was just that thing of going outside of the school holidays, not quite so expensive, and it meant that we got a longer cruise. So most of the cruises out of Southampton in the UK that occur between probably June, July, August time tend to be 3, 4, maybe 5 nights at a push. The later ones tend to be longer, and that's what I wanted. I wanted a longer cruise. This particular itinerary also included Amsterdam, which we'd been to twice, ironically, this year. Fell in love with Amsterdam because we'd got the kids coming with us. We decided it would be a great opportunity to show the kids Amsterdam because they'd not been. Slight hiccup in the plans in that about 10 days before we were due to sail, we had an email from Disney to say that we were no longer going to be stopping at Amsterdam.
Oh dear.
Now, whilst Disney didn't say the exact reason, I think the terminology they used was something like situations outside of their control. It was pretty evident it was due to climate protesters had been chaining themselves to a lock that the ships have to pass through to get into the port of Amsterdam. It caused disruptions to other cruise lines. So I think Disney kind of made that decision. Let's not cause any disruption. Let's pull the plug on it, so to speak. And very nicely, they gave us $250 room credit for each of the rooms, and we'd got 3 rooms. That worked out quite nicely because it did mean that most of the things that we'd pre-booked were covered by that credit. So that was quite nice of them. Thank you very much, Disney. So we also did get to stop in Hamburg, and we also got to stop in Zeebrugge. So we were scheduled for 2 nights in Hamburg, we were scheduled for 1 night in Zeebrugge, and we ended up with 2 nights in Zeebrugge. Not the most glamorous of ports, So the slight disappointment that we couldn't find a different port to go to. But Hamburg was quite unique because it was the first time that the Disney Dream had stopped at Hamburg. The little plus with that was as we left Hamburg on the second evening, there was one of those, I don't know what you call them, the water barges where there was spray water everywhere. The ship played all the different horn tunes that it could possibly play. And we kind of sailed up and down the Elbe for a little bit. And the shoreline was just lined with people. So we felt like royalty. We stood on our veranda waving at everybody like we were the Queen and the King. It was quite unique, really. So that was quite a nice little perk, I suppose, of stopping in Hamburg for the very first time with Disney. So, yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned you're on the Disney Dream. What did you think to the ship and its facilities for you and your travelling party?
Simon and I were very fortunate. We sailed on the Dream last year, so we've only now ever sailed on the Dream. So we knew what we were getting ourselves into, for want of a better phrase. So we kind of knew what to expect. We had told the kids about various different things as well. For us, it worked out perfectly. We had picked rooms that were midship on deck 9. We had rooms that were next to each other. So we were able to get the veranda opened up between the 3 rooms, which was lovely. So we had an extra big veranda, effectively. We made big use of the spa. 4 out of the 5 of us had paid for the Rainforest pass for the week, and we made good use of that. Really enjoyed the gym, really enjoyed the sauna aspect to all of that. None of us within our party are big drinkers. We weren't really going around the nightclub, the bar type areas, because it just wasn't something that appealed to us. We did venture down that end. Simon and I partook of a silent disco one evening, and then one afternoon they ran silent disco again. So we dragged Molly and her boyfriend Dan down there with us to experience that. So we kind of went into the bar area, but not too much, because it just wasn't something that was our sort of thing. But we had more than enough to do on the ship. I love the days at sea, just wandering and exploring, doing things like the Midship Detective Agency, watching baby racing, all these little bits and bobs that you can find to do. And what I think surprised me last year and again this year, there is lots of different things to do. We had Molly and Dan going off doing Disney trivia quizzes. They were up on the basketball court. We all played mini golf. But there's also plenty of downtime as well. So if you want to just go and sit in a porthole and literally watch the world go by, or if you want to go and find that trivia quiz to play, or you want to go and have a look around the shops, because who doesn't want to go and look around the shops? There's so much to do, and I say our experience of Disney ships is limited. Obviously, only having gone on the Dream, but absolutely loved it. Couldn't ask for anything better. For us, it just worked perfectly.
That sounds great, because I know initially Molly's partner had a little bit of a concern about cruising. So has he been converted into a cruiser?
I think so. I think he was more concerned about the fact that it was a Disney cruise. I think he had it in his head that it was just something for kids. As we know, a lot of people that are not au fait with the Disney parks will often refer to it as it's just for kids, it's not for grown-ups. And us grown-ups know way better. I think for Dan, after maybe the first 24 hours, you could see he relaxed into it. He kind of got what it was all about. The fact that, the service is just beyond. The fact that, you have the turn down service, that you have, the minute you've gone back to your room to shower after the gym, and then new clean towels magically appear. The fact that at meal times, they had, whether it was in the cabanas, and you had this vast array of foods that you could go back and choose from numerous times. When it came to the fine dining, and the fact that, I think one night, I think we all had 2 starters and the kids all had 2 mains each. Once you kind of got into that, oh no, this is what you can do. And also the fact that, there was that end of the ship that was adult only. So you didn't have to be in with, quote unquote, the kids all the time. but it also didn't spoil it for Molly because she is the big Disney fan and she still got to meet characters. You know, she's got a classic bit of video where she met Captain Hook. I wasn't with her. I so wish I was with her. And basically, Captain Hook stole her away from Dan. And she kept her camera going, so she has it on video as well, which is really cute. But, you know, so as much as Dan was like, I'm not meeting characters, it's for kids, etc., he did let himself go a little bit. I think he can now understand where our fascination kind of comes from. So whether he's completely converted, time will tell. I think for them as a couple, next year's vacation is going to have to be his choice. But that does mean that Molly can then go back in the following year with a bigger Disney trip, should she so wish.
Fantastic. So let's get on to the big reason why people go on a cruise, the food. You touched on it a little bit.
Yes.
It's rotational dining on the Disney Cruise Line, and what sets Disney apart is that as you go to different experiences, the different dining, you have the same staff looking after you every single time. So they get used to you, they like you, and they'll prepare for you and they'll pamper to your needs as they get to know you. And I do know of many of our listeners that go repeatedly on the same cruise line, and they request certain servers if they're still on that ship, because they develop such a bond. So tell us a little bit about the dining experiences you had to choose from on the Dream.
So our 3 restaurants, we had Enchanted Garden, we had Animator's Palette, and we had the Royal Palace. Our 2 lovely ladies, we had 2 lady servers, were amazing. I have to give a shout out to them. They were very good, obviously, like you say, Michelle. Once they pick up on the fact of what drinks you like, etc., they're there. So, you know, as I said, we're not big drinkers in our family at all. Sam and I quite happily will have coffee, so our coffee cups were never empty. Molly was drinking lemonade, and again, her lemonade was never empty. On the one night, Ethan had actually had one of the fancy mocktails. It was like the next night, oh, do you want, you know, are you going to have another one tonight, sort of thing. But I just love the way that they, like you said, they got to know you, and they were playing silly little games with us. So one of our girls had got this little matchstick game where, I'm sure you will have seen these, Michelle, where you lay down matchsticks in and she was using crayons, actually. Lay down crayons in a shape, and then you have to move one to make a different shape, or you can only move 2, or this sort of thing. Well, it started off on, I think, night 2. By about night 7, we were all losing our heads because we were getting them and she was coming back with more and more and more complicated. And at one point we suddenly realised we were eating our food and not actually eating our food properly because we were too busy trying to work out the puzzles. So it was quite funny, and we had to kind of say, no, hold on a minute, dessert has arrived. Let me have my dessert, then I'll go back to working out the puzzle. I have to say, I was rubbish at them. I just let Simon and Ethan and Moles and Dan have a go and work it all out. But yeah, it did become a little bit of well, it's definitely going to be one of those memory things from the vacation. It's that thing of, it will always stay with us because it's just a bit of daft and stuff. But they were great. They were very good at letting us know what was coming up the following day. And on the times that we were, because in both Hamburg and Zeebrugge, we were staying overnight in port, they actually turned around and said, the dining room will be open beyond up to a certain time. So rather than we were on second sitting, so rather than having to be there for like 8:30, they were saying you're actually allowed to come into the dining room as late. I think it was about 9:30, recognising that people will be doing things off ship later, and therefore letting people come into the dining room later, which made their life harder because obviously, you know, that whole ballet that they do in getting all the food out was then going to be extended, so it extended their working hours for them. But always had a smile. You know, you couldn't ask for better service. I mean, we had exceptional service last year on the Dream, and yeah, it was matched again this year. We loved the rotational dining. we didn't have a bad meal at all during the rotational dining. We loved everything we ate. And we were a lot more confident this year in going, no, I am going to have both of those starters. Or, you know what, I fancy all three of those desserts. So, and I say with the kids, once they recognised that that was an okay thing to do, we took advantage of it and really enjoyed ourselves.
Do you have a favourite out of the 3 dining options?
I think I enjoyed the food and the decor probably best in Royal Palace. I love the layout of Animator's Palette, but I think the only thing with Animator's Palace is obviously we were there 2 nights. So one night we had kind of the Crushers Talk interactiveness going on. And then the second night is where you actually draw, which is great. You can draw a little character and see it animating. I think the only thing is that you've got to be wanting to take part in those things. And if you're not particularly gregarious enough to get involved, then it can be a little bit distracting. So although I loved looking at all the maquettes and looking at how the screens worked in that room, but it could be a little bit distracting for when you're actually eating, because I'm too fascinated by the animation cells and how they all linked in and everything. But I think for ambience and menu, Royal Palace would be my favourite.
Fantastic stuff. So moving slightly away from the rotational dining, which is all included in your fare.
It is indeed, yeah.
And as I found out, there is nothing wrong with a side sundae or an additional Mickey bar for your dessert, which the lovely servers will go and fetch for you and adorn with sprinkles in the shape of Mickey as well. You do have the option on Disney Cruise Line to pay an upcharge for a bit more of an exclusive experience. And I believe on the Dream, just like on the Fantasy, they have Paolo and they have Remy, and they both offer a brunch experience and a dinner experience. And I do know I have done pre-COVID, which was a smorgasbord of decadence at the Paolo brunch, which is renowned for the never-ending table of loveliness. But that did get modified over the COVID period and came back as here's the menu, have what you want, basically. Not as good as before, because you had to actually order it. And if you were more of a little picky bit, like, oh, I only want a couple of chocolate-covered strawberries, or I just want to get an absolute mashing of salmon or prawns or whatever, you could have done that. So I have done the revitalised experience on the Disney Fantasy. What was it like on the Disney Dream?
It was a lovely experience. We ended up doing it for 5 as initially Sam and I had wanted, and it was just going to be something Sam and I did. I couldn't get a table for 2, but I could get a table for 5. So yeah, go figure. So it was beautiful. We were welcomed in, explained about the Venetian glass in the entranceway, all very lovely. Got assigned our server. It was quite sweet actually, because there was the complimentary Prosecco. The only person on the table that wanted the complimentary Prosecco was my good self. Consequently, I got through 3 of them, because he was very good, our server, in that, I'll just keep bringing the ones that you haven't, the rest of your lot haven't drunk, you can have. So I did get through 3 Proseccos during the course of the brunch. I have to say that unfortunately for us, we were left a little bit underwhelmed with our Paolo brunch. Yeah. I think whether it's one of those things where we'd heard so many good things about it, I'd seen various YouTubes where people were, going orgasmic over the food, etc. Whether therefore we'd built it up too much in our heads or not, I don't know. It started off okay. We told them that we hadn't been before. I think I felt that there was no guidance as to what we could or could not do. We were just given the menu, and it's like, oh right, okay. So, do we order everything? Can we order nothing? There was very little guidance given to us. So we all kind of ordered different bits and pieces. Little things that I noticed, we got the beautiful almond croissants given to the table, but that was it. We got no other bakery items. I noticed other tables got other bakery items and we didn't. So that was one little thing. The antipasti that we had, we had the meat was great. I think we had a soup that was a bit okay. It was a bit bland, not particularly anything to shout home about. Opted for a Mickey waffle, the apple waffle with apple compote, which was fine, but it was a Mickey waffle. It was, yes, it was a full size Mickey waffle, but it wasn't anything completely wowed us, sort of thing. And then I think both Simon and I opted for the chicken parmesan because we'd heard this was the dish to get. It was like, famous for it. And we both looked at each other and went, a bit bland, isn't it? And that was our reaction, genuine our reaction to it. I would also like to point out by this point, we'd been in Paolo for nearly 2.5 hours at that point.
What?
Yeah. The service that had started off relatively promptly, not being rushed, but it was coming quite quickly, suddenly slowed down. We had an awful long wait to get the chicken parmesan out. By this point, the aircon in there, I was starting to feel a little bit chilly. So it wasn't the most comfortable of experiences. When we left the restaurant, we were there about 3 hours in total. Never got offered coffee at the end, by the way. We had a dessert, which was beautiful. That was probably the best bit of the whole dining experience. And we all said we all felt cold at the end. And it was just a peculiar experience, the fact that they knew that we were first-time Paolo visitors, but didn't seem to go, right, I think he said to us, oh, ask me anything. And it's like, well, I don't know what to ask you. You should be kind of advising me and telling me where to go and what to do and type of thing. So we had this very long protracted, it got very cold in there. And the other thing that I would say is that we'd all made an effort to get dressed up. I'd explained to the kids, that, this was a fancy place to go.
Mm-hmm.
So shirt collars, guys, smart trousers. Both me and Moz have got nice little dresses on. We felt we looked the part for the level of establishment that we were going to. As we were waiting to go into the restaurant, there was a couple that had come into the little bar area, and I just presumed they were going out onto the deck that I knew was there for smoking. And then I looked around and they were actually in the restaurant with us, and they were just in basically shorts and t-shirts, and not very nice t-shirts at that either. And I looked around at somebody else and it was like, you look like you're throwing a cardigan over gym gear.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, this isn't helping. I had read online that people said that, it had been relaxed a little bit. But yeah, this was just like, no, this was my first experience in Paolo. It got really slow. I got cold, so I wasn't comfortable. And I didn't feel that we got as attentive a service as other tables got. And there were people that weren't dressed for the occasion. It was also very evident I could overhear tables that I'd obviously dined at Paolo a lot of times, and they seemed to be getting lots of gushy attention from their waiters. So I have to say that we left, and that's probably the only mark on the whole vacation was our experience at Paolo. To the point that Simon and I have kind of said, if we were in a position to do Paolo again, on whether it's on the Dream or another ship, we would give it a go, but we would kind of make it a point to say to our server, oh, this is our second time because our first time wasn't very good. We're giving you another chance.
Yeah.
And we would say that to them just to see what actually happens, because I felt that, we kind of had 3 hours sat there on a day at sea when we could have been doing something else for 3 hours. That's how it kind of left you feeling at the end of it. So unfortunately, as much as I know people love Paolo and rave about it, and the brunch is like the best thing, we all kind of left a bit like meh feeling.
Oh no, I'm so sorry, because I've had the experience twice on the fantasy and once on the magic, and every single time, even though it has evolved and changed a little bit, it was phenomenal. Like when we was on the magic, there was a big group of us and we had a side room and our own personal wait staff, and it was just phenomenal service. The chicken parmesan was absolutely delightful. The steak, delightful. The waffle. In fact, we just had everything. And when I went last time, Anthony and I just ordered every dessert. And it was the server who said, "Do you want every?" And he just brought it. So I just feel that perhaps you had a bad day. The kitchen staff weren't on top par, and your wait staff definitely weren't on any kind of par.
Well, I thought, unfortunately for us, it kind of started off really well, and then and after about the first couple of courses, it kind of just petered out. Whether that was a case of their wait staff were too, thinly spread or not, I don't know. There was a larger group to the back left of me in like a little side room. There was about 10 or 12, I think 10 on the table. So whether that had an impact or not, I don't know. But yeah.
Oh, such a shame. What about the entertainment? Did you go and see any of the shows?
Yes, we saw all three and loved all three. We had Believe, the Golden Mickeys, and my absolute favourite, Beauty and the Beast. At each of the three performances, there were wet eyes on more than one occasion at each of them. Yeah, they are phenomenal performances. And when you're on a 7-day cruise, you suddenly recognise lots of faces. You know, you will see, for example, your servers of an evening, you might see them in the cabanas the next morning. And likewise with the entertainment staff, you start to recognise faces. So somebody that you've seen doing the sail away party, you'll then notice them in Beauty and the Beast or whatever. And that's what blows my mind with the entertainment staff on a Disney cruise ship. They are doing 3 full Broadway quality shows, and they're all doing multiple parts, and they must have to understudy as well. And it's just phenomenal to think that they can bring that energy every single night, whether it's one of the main stage performances they're doing, or there was a couple of nights which we didn't go to where it was just basically like a bit of a musical rendition type affair. But to be able to get up and remember the lines, deal with the costume changes, all the props that are being used, all the stage mechanics that are in effect, the lighting, the special effects, and you're on a moving vessel at the end of the day when all this is happening. It's just absolutely phenomenal, and the quality of those performers was just breathtaking. I have not got a bad word. And if anybody went to any of those shows and didn't like it, then you need your head examining, because they were absolutely phenomenal. And if you didn't shed a little bit of a tear, then you got a heart of stone. I think even Dan admitted that, yeah, they were pretty good, I think, So and he's an ardent non-Disney fan, but we managed to get him to the shows, and he managed to enjoy them. So yeah, if you're on a ship, we saw them last year, didn't put us off. We were more than happy to go and see them all again. And if I was on the same ship this time next year, I would go and watch them all again, no questions asked.
I think for you, the next big step would possibly take a different variety of Disney ship. Maybe look at taking one of the smaller ones like the Wonder or the Magic, or the newer one, maybe Wish, Treasure, and have a different feel and a different vibe, and see what you think and take from that. Because I feel some of the ports that you go to when you're departing Southampton, if you are in England and you've lived in England, you will have probably travelled extensively already, if you're very fortunate, through Europe. So it's not necessarily the ports you're going on the cruise for. It's
No.
the Disney experience. Whereas if you're going to say from Port Canaveral, you will probably go to a Caribbean island you've never been to before, and you are actually going for the destination as well as the Disney. So maybe that is something to consider for the future.
No, definitely. We've already spoke about the fact that, we need to get our planning heads on. We've been saying this since about the end of July, I think. But I say our life has been a little bit hectic of late. We would love to go to Disney World February, March sort of time, 2025. And we have spoke about, well, if we're over there, it'd be rude not to put a cruise on it, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
So, so there is that opportunity. And obviously, if we did do a cruise out of the UK next year, it would be the Fantasy that is sailing out of the UK, which I know is a sister ship to the Dream, but at least it would be a different ship that would be sailing. But I think, I'm definitely considering to see what's sailing out of where, and whether we can add that onto a WDW vacay early part of next year.
Well, I am sure you will keep us all updated and let us know on the upcoming shows.
Oh,
Guys,
will do.
Do you have any questions you'd like to pose to Jim? Why not get in touch with us? info@disneydreamgirls.com. You can also follow us along on social media @DisDreamGirls over there on Instagram. I would personally like to thank each and every one of our wonderful Patreon supporters. Thank you for your financial support that you give us to keep the show advert free. You will be getting some additional content again very, very soon, but thank you in the meantime. But Jane, I think for now, until next time, it's a goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.